The Galactic Council had expected screaming. That was how first contact usually went: panic pheromones, religious collapses, diplomats begging for mercy. Instead, the chamber received silence. Thick. Intentional. The kind that felt like a loaded weapon resting on the table. Ambassador Kethrix of the Elwire Dominion cleared his throat sacs and forced a smile meant to soothe lesser species. On behalf of the Council, we welcome humanity of soul. We regret the misunderstandings along your frontier. The human delegation didn't move. They sat there, 5 of them, no ceremonial robes, no translator drones, no visible fear. Just dark uniforms, worn boots, and eyes that looked like they'd already buried everyone in the room. At the center sat an older man with silver hair and a scar splitting his eyebrow. Admiral Elias Ward, former commander of the Terran Outer Defense Fleet. He didn't look impressed. "You're not sorry," Ward said calmly. "You're scared." A ripple of unease passed through the council. The human language had been decoded as blunt, but this was aggressive. Kethrix clicked nervously. "The destruction of your colonies was a test?" Ward interrupted. "A misunderstanding? A border correction?" He leaned forward. "You glassed 12 worlds. 3 billion dead. You called it a policing action." Several councillors shifted. The Kravik Warclade representative bared his tusks. "Your species was warned. You refused council protection." Ward smiled. It was humorless. Dangerous. "We refused submission." The holoscreen behind the humans flickered to life without request. Council security scrambled, too late. Images flooded the chamber. Burned cities. Frozen children. Human soldiers pulling corpses from rubble. A woman screaming as orbital fire turned night into day. "This," Ward said quietly, "is why we're done talking." Kethrix raised his limbs in alarm. "The Council offers reparations. Trade concessions. Military integration. Join us and—" "No," the word echoed. The council chamber erupted in overlapping protests. "You don't understand. You are alone. You will not survive." Ward stood. He wasn't tall for a human. He didn't need to be. "Humanity doesn't want a seat on your council," he said. "We don't want your laws. We don't want your alliances. And we sure as hell don't want your mercy." He tapped a control on his wrist. Across 1,000 star systems, humanity moved. Hidden shipyards went hot. Sleeper fleets powered up. Ancient brutal weapons, dismissed as obsolete by alien doctrine, were pulled from vaults and bolted onto hulls. The humans had learned something the galaxy had forgotten. War wasn't about elegance. It was about ending the fight. Ward looked directly at the Kravik representative. "You taught us that." The lights dimmed. The Council's emergency alarms began to scream. The first system to burn wasn't a fortress world. That was what broke them. Kravik High Marshal Yardok had studied humanity for months: battle doctrines, industrial capacity, psychological profiles. His analysts predicted retaliation would be symbolic: a border skirmish, a single Council alliance shipyard struck to prove resolve before negotiations resumed. Instead, humanity chose Keros Drift, a civilian heavy trade nexus. No planetary shields. No major fleet presence. Just traffic, commerce, and retired officers living off pensions earned by past genocides politely rebranded as pacification campaigns. The humans didn't announce themselves. A mass driver slug exited subspace at a fraction under light speed. No exotic energy signature. No warning spike for council sensors to flag. Just a hunk of tungsten wrapped in contempt. Keros Station didn't explode. It unraveled. The projectile punched through 12 kilometers of alloy and habitat rings before exiting out the far side, venting atmosphere, bodies, and years of accumulated arrogance into the void. Secondary collisions finished the work. Docked ships smashed into each other like panicked animals. Fires bloomed where fire should not exist. Yardok stared at the tactical feed, mandibles trembling. "That weapon is obsolete," he snarled. Yes, Marshal, his aide replied softly. That's why our shields didn't stop it. Human fleets arrived minutes later. Not in parade formation. Not broadcasting identification codes or demands. They came in staggered vectors, sublight drives burning hot, hulls scarred and unapologetic. Ships looked welded together from necessity rather than design, layered armor plates, redundant systems, guns bolted where elegance had been sacrificed for survival. Council observers whispered the same phrase across 100 channels. They look like pirates. The humans opened fire before the Krovic escorts could finish turning. Rail guns. Missile salvos. Point defense cannons chewing through interceptor swarms. Human targeting didn't prioritize flagships, it targeted command crews, sensor arrays, engine clusters. A Krovic cruiser attempted a formal challenge broadcast. The transmission cut off when a human torpedo bored through its bridge. At the edge of the system, the TFS Resolute took a direct hit. Its port side bloomed into flame, armor peeling away. The Krovic commander smiled, signaling his gunners to close for the kill. The human ship accelerated straight at him. What are they doing? The Krovic shouted. The answer came in nuclear white. The Resolute overloaded its reactor and rammed. The explosion bisected the dreadnought, its remains spinning silently as debris. Shockwaves rippled through nearby vessels. Human comms lit up, not with warning, but with updates. Enemy capital neutralized. Log crew as Kia. Proceed. Human doctrine updated mid-battle. If dying buys victory, die loud. Across council space, similar scenes played out. At Red Spiral, human corvettes hid inside asteroid shadows and ambushed a supply convoy, boarding with breaching charges and old-fashioned shotguns. The sound of human firearms echoed through alien corridors, loud, crude, terrifyingly intimate. A Krovic lieutenant tried to surrender. The human marine paused, helmet visor cracked, breathing hard. Should have done that 12 worlds ago, he said, and stepped past him. Council analysts panicked as data poured in. They're not consolidating territory. They're not declaring war aims. They're selectively erasing leadership nodes. Humanity wasn't conquering. They were punishing. Then came the leaks. Human cyber units cracked council archives thought untouchable. War crime footage flooded public networks. Secret votes authorizing planetary glassing. Economic models calculating acceptable civilian loss. The galaxy watched its guardians exposed as monsters. Riots erupted on council worlds. Formerly loyal populations turned on their own governments. Statues fell. Executions followed. Uartok slammed his claw into the command table. Deploy the full warclade. Burn their frontier. Before the order could transmit, his flagship shuddered. A human boarding pod punched through the hull. Sirens screamed. Gravity failed. Smoke filled the bridge. Humans poured out of the breach, armor scratched, eyes cold, movements efficient. No battle cries. No hesitation. Uartok grabbed a sidearm. You are insects, he roared. The lead human paused, tilted his head. Funny, he replied. That's what you called the colony kids. The marshal died choking on his own blood. As the humans withdrew, they left something behind. A message. Broadcast on every council frequency. This is what refusing diplomacy looks like. The council reeled. Emergency sessions were called. Blame was shifted. Allies abandoned each other. Species that had once hidden behind council fleets quietly closed their borders and prayed humanity wouldn't notice them. And then, the humans went quiet. No new attacks. No broadcasts. No fleet movements detectable. The silence was worse than the war. Because everyone now understood the truth. Humanity wasn't angry anymore. They were deciding. Silence spread faster than panic ever had. For 3 standard weeks after the massacre at Keros Drift and the execution of High Marshal Uartok, humanity vanished from every known battle space. No raids. No cyber strikes. No propaganda broadcasts. Their fleets powered down, slipped into dark orbits, or simply disappeared into regions of space no Council map admitted existed. The Galactic Council called it a pause. Veteran strategists called it something else. Target selection. Emergency sessions ran nonstop. Representatives who had once sneered at humanity now spoke in hushed tones, their crests drooping, their confidence replaced with something close to dread. They're regrouping. No, they're rearming. No, worse. They're letting us panic. Councillor Talshera of the Valari Compact listened to the arguments without speaking. She was old enough to remember when the Council itself had been young, when fear, not arrogance, had guided policy. She watched the feeds from riot-torn worlds, from border systems cutting ties, from former client species openly celebrating Council defeats. The Empire was rotting from the inside. And humanity had barely scratched it. They're not trying to win a war, Talshera said finally. They're trying to end an era. The chamber fell silent. You don't know that, snapped a Rulon delegate. Talshera activated her console. A human data drop appeared, recent, unfiltered. Human fleets avoided civilian evacuation corridors, she said. They destroyed archives, not libraries. They killed commanders, not conscripts. This isn't vengeance without thought. She looked around the chamber. It's judgment. That word sent a shiver through species that had once played gods. Within the hour, Talshera was chosen as emissary. Not because anyone believed she would succeed, but because no one else was willing to try. The Sol system was nothing like Council projections. No ceremonial defense perimeter. No welcoming flotilla. Just layered kill zones, overlapping weapon platforms, and fleets parked like coiled predators. Human traffic moved with controlled urgency, cargo ships, warships, civilian transports, all following strict lanes. Order without spectacle. Talshera's vessel was scanned, boarded, and escorted with brutal efficiency. The humans were polite. Cold. Professional. She was not taken to a palace. She was taken to a graveyard. The shuttle set down on a quiet, gray world orbiting a pale star. Wind moved across endless rows of stone markers, each engraved with names in dozens of languages. Human languages. Alien languages. Dates of death clustered around the same years. Talshera's escort, an older human officer, gestured forward. He's waiting. Admiral Elias Ward stood alone near the center of the memorial, hands clasped behind his back. He wore no rank insignia. No weapon. His posture carried more authority than any honor guard. Talshera approached slowly. Admiral Ward. He nodded. You're brave. Or desperate. Both, she admitted. The Council wishes to negotiate an end to hostilities. Ward's gaze never left the stone in front of him. You know what this place is? He asked. A memorial. It's a receipt. He knelt, brushing dust from a name etched deeper than the rest. Marianne Ward. Civilian. Killed during orbital pacification of Haven 12. Talshera felt something twist in her chest. You authorized that strike, Ward said calmly. Not you personally. But your council did. Voted. Calculated acceptable losses. My wife was part of a column in a spreadsheet. I am sorry, Talshera said, and meant it. Ward stood. We're past apologies. She steadied herself. The Council offers recognition of full human sovereignty. Reparations. A permanent seat with veto authority. Military integration. Ward turned then, eyes sharp. No. The word cut deeper than any weapon. You don't understand, Talshera said quickly. Without the Council, the galaxy fractures. Wars will spread. Billions will die. Ward nodded. Yes. That's what happens when bullies lose their shield. He gestured skyward. Talshera followed his gaze. The stars shifted. One by one, human ships decloaked, hundreds, then thousands, emerging from shadows, from planetary orbits, from places sensors swore were empty. Not a defensive posture. A launch posture. Talshera's breath caught. You're preparing a full offensive. We already ran one, Ward said. This is the lesson. Her voice shook. You'll burn the galaxy. Ward shook his head. No. We're going to make sure no one like the Council ever rises again. He tapped a control. Across Council space, dormant human operations activated simultaneously. Weapons caches opened on suppressed worlds. Rebel leaders received coordinates, supplies, intel. Slave populations found their overseers' defense grids offline. Human fleets struck not capitals, but keystones. Financial nexuses collapsed under cyber assault. Propaganda networks were replaced with raw, unedited footage of Council atrocities. Ancient client species, kept technologically dependent for centuries, received open-source human engineering databases. The galaxy didn't fall into chaos. It rebelled. Talshera watched the feeds, horror and awe mixing in equal measure. You're not conquering, she whispered. Ward's expression was grim. We tried empires. They fail. We tried diplomacy. You burned worlds. He met her eyes. So now we try consequences. On a distant Council fortress world, a planetary governor watched as his own people dragged him from his office. Human drones hovered overhead, broadcasting a single message on loop. Choose better leaders. On another world, a human captain sat across from an alien resistance fighter, sharing a drink before departure. You staying? The alien asked. The human smirked. Hell no. This is your mess now. Weeks later, the Council reconvened. Half its seats were empty. The rest were occupied by species who no longer believed in the myth of protection. The Council voted to dissolve its military arm, to open archives, to submit to interstellar oversight. Humanity didn't attend. They didn't need to. Admiral Ward watched the news from a quiet outpost bar, a glass of cheap whiskey in hand. Veterans, human and alien, sat nearby, swapping dark jokes and old scars. A young alien finally asked, voice hesitant, "Why stop now? You could rule everything." Ward took a slow drink. Because ruling is how this all started. He looked out at the stars. And we're done being the problem. Somewhere far away, the galaxy tried to learn how to live without gods. And prayed humanity wouldn't ever decide to play one again. Years later, the Galactic Council still existed. Barely. The once mighty alliance of empires, syndicates, and warclades had been reduced to a shadow of itself, an assembly of trembling voices and empty flags. Where fleets once patrolled entire sectors, there were now only faint traces, poorly maintained, monitored by alien veterans who had learned the hard way that human patience was finite and human wrath precise. Humanity never occupied a council seat. They never demanded tribute. They never even insisted on reparations beyond what they deemed necessary to secure their borders. Instead, they had created something the galaxy had never seen before: limits. On the frontier, the so-called Ward Protocols governed human intervention. If the species crossed those limits, torturing civilians, enslaving populations, or hiding war crimes, human fleets would appear. Not to conquer. Not to rule. But to correct. Swift, brutal, and precise. A strike so surgical that the galaxy often never knew humanity had been there, except for the bodies of corrupt leaders and the archives left in flames. Admiral Elias Ward had retired, or at least as retired as a man like him could be. He lived on a quiet moon, an outpost of dust and silence, running a small bar for veterans of all species, humans and aliens alike. He served cheap whiskey, listened to dark humor, and rarely spoke of the war. But those who asked learned quickly that the calm exterior masked decades of meticulously honed violence. One night, a young alien with trembling mandibles approached him. "Admiral, why didn't you just wipe them all out? Every last one of the council, every fleet, every loyalist?" Ward set down a glass, letting the amber liquid catch the dim light. He smiled faintly, not kindly. "Because that's easy," he said. "And we're not done teaching." The alien tilted its head. "Teaching what?" Ward leaned back, eyes fixed on the stars beyond the bar's viewport. "That there are consequences. that monsters die when they refuse to listen. And that peace isn't given, it's earned. The galaxy had learned the hard way. Entire empires had discovered that humans were not to be underestimated, that their arrogance, ingenuity, and capacity for vengeance had no equal. Yet, paradoxically, humanity never ruled. They simply reminded everyone why they should think twice before crossing the line. On distant worlds, historians whispered tales of the Keros Drift massacre, the Red Spiral boarding actions, the Memorial on Sol, and then Silent Week, when humans vanished, only to return in judgment. They told stories of humans who didn't conquer, didn't negotiate, didn't rule, but remembered, and who always delivered when provoked. In bars, in halls, in dark alleys of shattered space stations, veterans shared one truth: humans don't forgive easily. Humans don't negotiate endlessly. And humans never forget. And somewhere in the cold, uncharted corners of space, the remnants of the Council, humbled, terrified, and forever changed, updated every record, every archive, every warning in every known language. When humans stop negotiating, it's not because they've run out of options. It's because they've chosen one. Admiral Ward raised his glass, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his scarred mouth. Outside, the stars burned silently. Somewhere, humanity was watching, waiting, and the galaxy, small, fragile, arrogant, remembered that for all its might, it was never truly in control. And in that truth lay the most terrifying lesson of all: humanity didn't need to dominate the stars. Humanity needed only to exist. The bar erupted in laughter as a human war veteran told a joke in a language no one but a human could fully appreciate. Aliens laughed, too, if only nervously. Somewhere, far above them, a quiet fleet drifted through space, engines cold, guns loaded, ready to remind the universe that the story was far from over. Because humanity was still there. Always watching. Always learning. Always judging. And the galaxy had never been safer, or more terrified.